Hello everybody, and welcome back to This Week in Magic Online Finance. I'm your host, Chaz Andres, and if you're a regular viewer, you might notice that the green screen effects behind me are gone. But don't worry, that is just a temporary thing. My video producer and I are working on a way to improve my camera setup so that the green screen tricks actually, look good as opposed to bad. So rest assured, we're working to make sure that the quality of the videos is the best it's ever been. And for now, well, you get to see my cool original Star Wars poster. At any rate, let's move on to the news. And the biggest story of the week, of course, is that the Guilds of Ravnica standard metagame is finally beginning to congeal. And while it's still a little early to make judgment calls about which decks are tier 1 and which are tier 2 and what the best deck in the format is, we can say for certain at this point that the format is shaping up to be as diverse and interesting and cool as it has been in years. I mean, take a look at what we've got cooking this week. We've got mono red aggro, of course. We've got the Teferi decks, lots of different variations of those. The Jeskai ones have been ascendant recently. You've got the mono green Steel Leaf Stompy decks, some of them splashing red. You've got, of course, Selesnya tokens. You've got different versions of Golgari mid-range. You have your Nicol Bolas decks. You have your Sarkhan decks. You've got your Dimir decks featuring Doom Whisper. There's so many cool things you can be doing right now in Standard. I would not be surprised if this proves to be the most popular format since probably Khans of Tarkir. So what does that mean financially? Well, popular Standard formats usually tend to be expensive Standard formats because more people want to play, demand goes up, prices go up, especially cards from sets that aren't being drafted anymore from less popular formats like Ixalan, so the supply is just a little bit lower over there. Now, granted, mid-October is almost always the seasonal high for Standard cards. This is the one time of the year that Standard cards tend to be at their most expensive, but based on how good this format looks, unless that changes over the next couple of weeks, I don't think we're going to see a massive tail off. I think Standard is going to stay expensive through most of the fall and into the winter. Let's move on to gaining ground, where in Standard, the card that gained the most ground this week was Jadelight Ranger. Jumped about 5 tickets from 7.5 up to 12.5, and if you take a look at the price chart, this card is actually still trending upward. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up somewhere between 15 and 20 tickets later this week. It's going to be an expensive staple. So what's happening here? Well, most of my friends right now who are building Standard decks are working on building Golgari mid-range. That deck just looks incredibly sweet, and of all the lists kicking around MTGO, and there are a lot, most of them start with 4 full copies of Jadelight Ranger. The card also sees play in the Abzan and some of the Selesnya decks kicking around, so there's room for this card to run beyond just Golgari. And let's not forget this card is from Rivals of Ixalan. That set was not very popular, it was not opened a ton, so this card has room to grow, it has room to stay high. I don't expect it to drop below the 10 ticket mark again anytime soon. It may end up hovering around the 20 ticket mark for a while. Let's move on to Modern, where the card that gained the most ground this week was Cavern of Souls. It was kind of a modest gain, only about 3 tickets from 18 up to 21, but that's the start of a rebound for a card that spent most of 2018 somewhere in the 25 to 28 ticket range. It's been fairly stable, just below the 30 ticket mark. And look, the Modern market is still in the toilet right now, but we are starting to see a little bit of a rebound this week for some cards, especially black staples. Cards like Liliana of the Veil, Leyline of the Void, and Collective Brutality all made little gains this week. Let's talk about our biggest losers, where in Standard it was actually a card I really love, History of Benalia, that dropped 3 tickets from 16.5 down to about 13.5. And yeah, if you look at the price chart, it does appear that this card may continue to drop over the next couple of days, but that doesn't mean that I'm bearish on it going forward. This card is really good, it's really well positioned in Standard right now, and while Boros aggro might not be the deck we all thought it was going to be, I don't think it's really going to be a deck at all, quite honestly. The card still sees play as a 4 of in Selesnya, it still sees play in Boros Angels, it sees play in basically any deck that's going to run at least a decent number of planes. So it may not find a home right away, it may not be the big gainer we all thought it was going to be, it may not end up around the 20 ticket mark, but this is definitely a card that's going to be a major player going forward. I am not panic selling my History of Benalias at all. Let's talk about Modern, where things are still a little bit bloodbathy. I mean, look, the biggest loser this week was yet again Jace the Mind Sculptor, dropping another 15 tickets. It went from 59 all the way down to 44. Mox Opal, another major Modern staple, took another big tumble this week. It was in the mid-60s back in mid-September. It's down to almost 30 tickets now. That's a pretty crazy drop for two of the most important cards in Magic's most important format. So, is it time to panic? I asked this question 2 weeks ago, I answered no. Asked this question last week, I answered no. Asking the question again this week, and I'm still answering no, even though I'd be lying if I said the nerves weren't starting to come into play a little and I wasn't starting to doubt myself. But here's the thing. Arena's great, but Modern isn't going to be on Arena anytime soon, so we know this price drop isn't from people fleeing the program. And we also know this price drop isn't from people fleeing Modern, because Modern is still probably Magic's best format, probably Magic's most popular format. So why are prices low? Well, there's really only one answer, and the answer is Standard is really popular right now. Everyone wants to play Standard. They're selling their Modern cards to buy into Standard, which really does happen every time, just not to this extent. So if you actually step back and look at the metrics and take a deep breath, it's clear that these cards are going to rebound at some point soon. So wait for the price charts to bottom out, buy back in, you're going to get some really important Modern staples at a pretty steep discount. Let's talk about the sneak of the week, which this week is Azor's Gateway. And it doesn't fit the normal definition of sneak, how I usually use it, but it's a card on the rise that I really want to talk about. So let's talk about it. Azor's Gateway is a 2 casting cost colorless mythic, which many people, including myself, really liked when it was spoiled in Rivals of Ixalan. The problem is it never really found a home, it ended up dropping in price, it's down below 5 tickets now. But it may actually now have a real home in Jeskai Control. The reason why is it plays really well with Explosion, one of the new kind of cool key cards in Guilds of Ravnica that's way better than people gave it credit for at first. So people are actually running versions of Jeskai Control with 4 copies of Azor's Gateway. And if this proves to be the best Teferi controlled deck going forward, we're looking at like a 15+ ticket mythic. So definitely pick up some copies of Azor's Gateway now. It's one of those cards that may break out in a major way over the next week or two. As always, we're going to end the week by taking a look at the MTGOTraders sales data over the past 7 days. And this gives us a great chance to see which cards are actually selling the most, regardless of price increases or decreases. Let's take a look at overall sales by volume, where we've got rares aplenty near the top of our list. Last week's best-selling card was Steam Vents. That's still number 2, still a really popular card. Speaking of Steam, we've got Runaway Steamkin, Fellow Mono Red card, Risk Factor, there's Golgari cards like Assassin's Trophy, there's Jeskai cards, there's Selesnya cards. Really, the only metagame judgment we can make based on this list is that Standard overall is really popular and really diverse right now. People are buying all kinds of cards. And that is the argument I've been making in this video since the start. Moving on to overall sales by price, the narrative that Standard is incredibly popular right now is still holding up. We've got Assassin's Trophy in that number 1 spot for the 3rd straight week, followed of course by Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and then you've got other cards like Doom Whisperer and History of Benalia also in that top 5. But perhaps most interestingly, we've got 2 Modern cards in the top 6, and it's the 2 Modern cards that lost the most value this week. It's Jace the Mind Sculptor and Mox Opal. They're both selling well despite losing tons and tons of value. Now, is this a sign the Modern market is about to rebound? Well, yeah, it might be, or at least a sign that these 2 cards are done bottoming out and that people are starting to buy in. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jace and Mox Opal start to gain value, or at least stop losing value over the next week. That's all I got for you today. I'm Chaz Andres, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you again next Monday morning for another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more awesome MTG content just like this, and make sure to tap the bell icon to be notified whenever a video is made live. If you want to keep watching content, here are 2 more videos for you. This video and many others are sponsored by MTGOTraders and Cape Fear Games. Buy and sell digital singles to build your online collection today with MTGOTraders, and get your paper singles, accessories, and much more from Cape Fear Games. Whatever your Magic needs, both places have you covered.